Trump is doing everything in his power to bait black people, and it's only getting worse because black people aren't falling for anything at all right now. And I've never been scared of y'all because the thing is, y'all get off on people being scared. That's the only way y'all can't get me.
You're not just targeting policy, you're targeting people. Black people, brown people, marginalized communities. In the wild part, we make up the smallest portion of this country, yet somehow we are the biggest threat to the lie that white supremacy built.
Countless black people were hung in trees, burned, tarred and feathered, shot, imprisoned, exiled for the Voting Rights Act. As soon as you peep their game, they attack. This week, the Supreme Court was back at it, and it looks like we're staring down yet another blow to black voting power in this country. Imagine that. We are the target again. Now, if you know your history, like I know my history, you know that the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was a major win for the civil rights era. It was meant to protect us from the racist voter suppression tactics that had been the norm for so long. But here's the problem. Over the past decade, this law has been slowly picked apart by the Supreme Court because the Supreme Court has been slowly growing more conservative. And this week, the justices heard a new case that could cut even deeper into our already fragile voting protections. So this all started with the state of Louisiana, which has a black population of about 30%. After the last census, the state was required to redraw its congressional maps. That's normal. But here's the catch. After a lot of legal back and forth, Louisiana was told it needed to create 2 majority black districts to fairly represent the state's black voters. Eventually they did. But then out of nowhere, a group of so-called non-black voters jumped in and said, hold up, we've got a problem with that. Mind you, not the black folks, not the legislature, not the court, but this group didn't like the idea of adding a second black majority district. So they took it to court, and now it's in front of the Supreme Court, because that's what happens when white folks get upset. What's wild is that we've been here before. Just 2 years ago, this same court, with Chief Justice John Roberts writing the opinion, upheld a very similar provision of the Voting Rights Act in Alabama. They said, yeah, if black voters are being packed into one district or spread out to dilute their power, that's not okay. That decision gave folks a little bit of hope. But now Roberts is acting like that case doesn't even matter, like it's not exactly the same, like it was a one-off. During arguments, the court's conservative justices made it pretty clear they were leaning towards limiting protections for black voters. Again, Justice Alito tried to argue that chasing partisan advantage isn't the same as using race. But come on now. In places like Louisiana, race and party are so tightly connected, you can't separate the two. Lawyer Nielsen, president of the NAACP's Legal Defense Fund, told the court straight up, we're talking about racially polarized voting that is above 84%. Translation, the vast majority of white voters in Louisiana simply don't vote for black candidates, no matter their party. This ain't just political, it's racial, but they don't want to admit that. And then we had Justice Barry Kavanaugh, the rapist, who cast the deciding vote in that Alabama case 2 years ago, come in talking about how race-based remedies like this shouldn't last forever. You're right, Brett. It should last as long as all of y'all are racist. But Nielsen reminded him, Congress didn't put an expiration date on this part of the Voting Rights Act. And more importantly, the 15th Amendment, the one that bans race-based voting discrimination, that's permanent because y'all can't be trusted. Ain't no sunset clause on that because y'all have always been racist and you will always be racist. Justice Kagan asked the question that's probably on your mind right now. What happens if the court guts this part of the Voting Rights Act? Nelson didn't hesitate. She said it would be catastrophic because it would. The reason we even have black congressional representation in the Deep South is because of these protections, people. If they get tossed, the map, literally and figuratively, gets a whole lot worse for black folks. We've got to keep organizing, keep voting, keep fighting in the courts and everywhere else. We've got to keep showing up for each other, even when the system tries to shut us down. Keep your people informed and share this video with anyone who needs the information. This isn't just about maps, it's about power. And we know they don't give it to us. We have to take it by any means necessary. But you need to be educated on how the game is played. You need to be disciplined to play the game to win. And you have to have empathy for your brothers and sisters who don't yet know everything they need to know. I love you, black man. I love you, black woman. Knowledge is power, power to the people.
So apparently the Supreme Court in Louisiana is trying or really doing its best that it can to silence black people from voting, and they want to say that it's not racially motivated, but more of politically motivated, to not be showing the impact that actually black people's voting has in America. You're that scared, you're that threatened, that the group of people that you've always intimidated, always threatened, always did the most atrocities to, is now in a time where it has more impact, has more power and influence. Now that you're so threatened, you want to take away their voting rights and revoke what they actually fought for. This government of Trump is literally doing everything possible to see black people on the street. Maybe they have a certain agenda that they need to complete, especially with that Project 2025. Like, they just need a certain reaction from black people for them to probably, allegedly conclude with that project, and it's not happening. Because with everything that is going on in America, with everything that this government has been really doing to everybody, why on earth are you trying to press black people? Like, what have they done?
White people have had a 400 plus year head start. 400 years worth of generational wealth stolen from our ancestors, Native Americans' ancestors, mind you, stolen. They didn't earn it, took it. And have had a 400 plus year head start and generational wealth. And they can't even handle black people having one full generation of bare minimum voting right access. Bare minimum. We ain't even nowhere near the same level what y'all got. We just talking about voting rights. My grandmother is almost 80. And in her lifetime, she has literally gone from black people hardly having any voting rights, especially black women, to gaining a semblance of voting rights, to now those voting rights being back on the chopping block in one lifetime span. Grandmother. This is, it is so enraging. It's giving me goosebumps. And white people, I don't want to hear y'all in my comments. I'm so sorry that y'all are experiencing this. This is so unfortunate. I voted for Kamala. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see a speck of salt in my comments. I'll delete it. I don't want to see y'all right now. I don't care about your condolences. I don't care. I don't want to hear it. I'm sick of y'all. I'm so... Jesus. 400-year head start, and y'all can't even handle. This is just...
All right, there's a case that's before the Supreme Court today, Louisiana versus Calais. And it's not really getting the attention that it should be getting, and it is a big deal. So I just want to take a break in my regular things that I normally post right now, because I think I need to talk about this. This case could decide whether black and brown people have voting rights left in this country. And I know that sounds dramatic, y'all, but it's not, I promise. This is about the last part of the Voting Rights Act that still actually works. So here's what's going on, right? The Voting Rights Act was created back in 1965 to stop states from making it harder for people to vote just based on race. And most of these protections have been stripped over the years. But there's one piece left, and that's Section 2. That's the part that says that states can't draw voting maps or create laws that make it harder for black and brown people to have their votes count. It's how communities have been fighting back against gerrymandering, which is when politicians redraw maps to keep certain groups out of power, essentially. And Section 2 is the reason that any of those unfair maps get challenged at all. So now Louisiana is in front of the Supreme Court today, saying something incredibly ridiculous, but also very dangerous. They're basically saying that states shouldn't be made to consider race when trying to fix racial discrimination. That makes no sense. Like, how do you fix racism without looking at race? You can't. But that's their argument, and the Supreme Court agreed to hear it. And if the Supreme Court sides with them, Section 2 won't be completely gone. It'll stop working. Because if you can't talk about race, then you can't prove racism. That's the loophole. Back in the 80s, the Supreme Court tried to make this law weaker. They said that you had to prove that racism was intentional. Like you needed someone caught saying, yeah, I did this to stop black people from voting. And that made cases almost impossible to win. So Congress actually stepped in and said if a law ends up hurting black voters, then that's enough. You don't have to prove impact, just intent. That's how Section 2 got stronger again. That's how Black, Native, and Latino communities started winning back fairer representation. But Calais could undo all of that progress. If Louisiana wins this case, there won't be any real federal law to protect voters of color. The part that used to stop states from changing laws without permission, that died in 2013 with Shelby County v. Holder. And this would take away what's left. And we already know what happens when that guardrail disappears. After Shelby, Texas, Alabama, North Carolina, they all started passing voter ID laws that targeted Black and brown people. And in Pasadena, Texas, they redrew maps overnight to weaken Latino power. It's the same pattern every time. They just keep waiting until nobody's looking. So yeah, Louisiana v. Kelly isn't on every headline, but it should be. Because this case is not just about one election. It's not just about one instance. This is not just one case. It's about whether our votes, our voices, really, still matter after this election is over. So if they gut Section 2, discrimination in voting won't just get worse. It'll get harder to prove. And when something can't be proven, it can't be stopped. And that's how they win quietly. Not with violence this time, but with paperwork and silence. I'm going to put a handful of legal organizations below that are working to stop this oppression. If you can donate, please do. But if you have a voice, you don't need a platform. If you have a voice, spread the word. More of us need to know about this. Authoritarian systems survive on fatigue. The way you stop them is through repetition, connection, and support for the causes made to protect us.
I'm talking about this because I feel like it's an insult, especially to the people that fought for the civil rights movement. It means that those people actually lost their lives and fought for nothing, which is not okay. And this matter actually involves everybody, be it Africans, be it Asians, be it Arabs, because also without that fight of those people, like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, people like those, none of those people that I've mentioned would have any kind of right to speak, to have a job, to get health, to vote, to literally have the freedom that you actually have today. So this is pissing the hell off of me. Like,
if you're not aware that the Supreme Court is currently hearing arguments that could ultimately lead to the overturning of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, you need to be, and I need you to understand why it should matter to you. Right now, the Supreme Court is hearing arguments on the case Louisiana versus Calais? Something. I don't know. Essentially, back in 2020, a new district was drawn or created in the state of Louisiana that was effectively a majority-minority district, meaning mostly Black and non-white residents in that space. And it added some congressional seats for Louisiana, People did not like that. And thus, they've sued, and it's gone all the way up the ladder to the Supreme Court, and they sued under the guise of non-African Americans. What the Supreme Court is currently looking at is Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. Section 2 was one of the core permanent, meaning it did not have an expiration date, permanent clauses within the Voting Rights Act of 1965 that basically says that you cannot discriminate on the basis of race when it comes to voting. Again, you need to remember that the Voting Rights Act was lobbied for and put in place because of and to counter the Jim Crow South. Section 2 also has implications on non-English speaking voting citizens. So this goes beyond just, yes, Black folks. We're talking about Black and brown folks. We're talking about marginalized groups, particularly and largely in the South. Half of the Black population in this country resides in the South. This Section 2 applies nationwide across the board, not on a state-to-state basis, which is important to note because for the other vast majority voting rules, voting laws, states have discernment and can make their own decisions based on certain things. So, this is, as of right now, the one thing nationally that is telling states you cannot create laws, you cannot create maps. This is about maps. You cannot draw or gerrymander maps to effectively eliminate or dilute the voting power of marginalized groups. If you're unfamiliar with what gerrymandering is, it's exactly what I just said. Gerrymandering is the deliberate redrawing and redistricting of lines and stuff on maps to effectively dilute the voting power, dilute the representation of marginalized groups. Historically, it's been Black people. Currently, it's still Black people, but it also includes other marginalized groups. The Voting Rights Act is also super integral to folks with disabilities. What they're using to try to claim that we no longer need this section of the Voting Rights Act is simply saying that this country is not in the state that it was in 1965. Racism does not exist to the extent that it did then as it does now. And that is bullshit, and you and I both know it. You and I both know it. We might have come far, but we have not come far enough. And while they may no longer be able to issue poll test or literacy tests and poll taxes, best believe they try every way they can to actively disenfranchise and dilute the voting power of black and brown citizens in this country. What happens if they succeed, and they likely will succeed, in effectively eliminating Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act? Well, you will see a significant decrease in the representation in Congress. Initially, it doesn't and won't stop there. You'll feel the effect locally too, because remember that these maps that they are working so hard to draw impact your local government too. Your school board, your city council, like they impact all of those, like your mayor and other governing and elected officials. But immediately you'll see it in Congress. Immediately you'll see the number of black representatives and black Congress people and black senators eliminated, vanished. And for what? To all create silos of power, to create this cipher, if you will. And it's so stupid, but this is how they set the system up. This is what they want to do. This is why we need to effectively end gerrymandering once and for all. So again, if you're not aware, this is the case that could very well say, hey, states, go right ahead, draw these lines and these maps any way you want to. Any way you want to. And if you are black, and if you are black in the South, you best believe that this will directly impact your voting power. Don't just sit by while it happens.
You can't tell me people that look like me risk their lives, put their bodies on the streets, like literally gave their whole entirety fighting for freedom for people that look like me. And we have people that have not even passed on since that was passed. That's like 60 something years from when it happened. And you want to take that away? These are the same people that were in support of Charlie when he was like the civil rights movement was an issue and it was a problem and it is like a racist thing that happened towards people that are not black. Which I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? These people are so mad and pissed that they no longer have the power that they had before towards our ancestors. They are so pissed that they can no longer have slaves working freely for their corporations, for their lives, because they are so used to being worked for. These people are so threatened that they did all the atrocities to said group people that look like me. But still in 2025, it's even more interesting to me that they are saying black people have more impact, have more influence, are more resilient, and with whatever that they have been, doing and putting in place, same people that look like me have been quiet and just watching, and it F's the F of them. They can't stand it. Like, I keep on saying that every day. The way these people were so used to my people or black people reacting and always talking about issues, and now with everything they've been doing and saying and putting in place, all the provocations or the provocative actions, they've been putting in place, black people have been quiet and silent, which is a powerful thing from the black community. And it's really interesting to see how these people are really, really crumbling, that they even want to, take away this thing that my people literally put their lives out for, to fight and get.
I really hate admitting this, but I am scared, like scared as shit, like full of fear type shit, right? Like, I don't know what it's like to fight for civil rights, for human rights. That's always been in history books. I've always read that from like a grateful perspective, of like from a grateful standpoint of like, thank God those battles have already been won so that I'm able to live the life I live and things like that. But then in real time, like, we're already like not responding to ICE the way we should be responding to ICE. Like, they're talking about having meetings about legislation, about forcing them to wear body cameras and having to identify themselves. Y'all are having meetings about forcing federal agents to identify themselves. Force them to without the fucking meeting. We are seeing extremists implement their fucking playbook, and then we're slow walking the fucking response and looking around confused about why it's getting worse. And then in real time, right? We're all so sure that birthright citizenship, they won't overturn that. That's in the Constitution. They're about to overturn the Voting Rights Act of 1965 that arguably allowed black people to vote. Later adjustments in that act extended that to minority languages being included in that Voting Rights Act. So I know that this is just an aim at not letting immigrants vote, shit like that. Like, they're continued attack on immigration and Latino people, right? But they're also very aware of how repealing that voting act, the Voting Rights Act, affects the black community, right? And they'll sit there and gaslight you and fucking lie and try to make it seem like this small population of people, this small population of black people, this small minority here is making decisions that affect the majority of the state, and the majority of the state isn't happy with that, so it's anti-democratic, right? That's their fucking argument, right? When in reality, the majority of the state is making the vote, obviously, and those votes, or the direction the state heads in, is negative for black communities, for communities of minorities and marginalized groups. So they're saying, hey, we want a fucking voice too, god damn it. And then when they have a voice and they have their places in the districts and the maps, and things change according to their voice, the people who didn't want them to have a voice are now looking around at the changes going, oh, fuck no. And so you're seeing gerrymander after gerrymander after gerrymander trying to minimize these black voices. And the most infuriating thing about the Republican Party is their ability to gaslight and mask what they're actually trying to do. Because their actions, you can very easily connect the dots to what the fuck they're trying to do. But then behind that goddamn podium, behind that motherfucking mic, they'll try to gaslight you and make it seem like you're the crazy one. We all know that Republicans are trying to take healthcare away from millions of Americans to give more money to the fucking multi-billionaires, right? They want to call this a democratic attempt at political theater, right? I can list example after example after example, but my fear stems from, one, there are racist and white supremacists all throughout the federal government, especially now. Two, what the fuck is a lifetime appointment, bro? The Supreme Court has shown clear-cut corruption and bias, and we have to deal with this until they go on to the next world. Why do you get to show corruption and bias and keep your position, bro? That question goes for everything in the federal government. Like, what is this? We're literally talking about reversing the Voting Rights Act of 1965, bro. And if they do that, and then all of these white supremacists and racists and people that are too pussy to voice their racism, but definitely are racist, now they can just vote and do shit in the shadows. And then when communities are affected by that negatively, they'll say, you know, this is just what the American people wanted. Can't you see how the majority voted? It's not the majority when you intentionally cut out people's voices.
What do you mean you're scared that people are going to see how influential black people are, the same people that you've been oppressing for 400 years? Like, what? What? And then a black person is also involved. Like, it's insane. How can a black person, just because you're a judge and you feel like you're on the side of these people, what makes you think that when this law passes, that you will still be considered as anything? How can you trust a person that does not look like you to that extent that you're willing to put your entire community in a dump shell, like in trash, just for you to feel accepted? Like, is that going to make you feel like, or is that going to make them feel like, oh my God, she or he is on our side, like we should give them more privilege? Like, is that even going to happen? Has it ever happened? How many people have crossed that side and did whatever they wanted and benefited? Like, how many? What makes you think like you are special? Like, you are special. This judge, I saw this man and I was like, yeah, this is why we are still colonized. Like, this is the reason why they colonized us. Because you can't tell me you're seeing or you're partnering with people that are willing to take away the rights of people that look like you, and you feel and think in your mind that they'll be on your side after that goes through. Are you insane? Are you crazy? Are you mad? You're dumb. That's what you are. That's what you are. I can't even take that back. Like, that's wild. That's so freaking wild. But anyway, guys, that is it for me in today's video. I am pissed about this. This is not okay. Like, our people, our ancestors did not fight for our freedom and rights just for us to be taken back in those same times. Like, this is not what they fought for. And I hope there's going to be like a solution in case it goes through. But let me just hope. It's just a bait. It's just a bait they are trying to use to get said reaction, as I said, allegedly, to conclude with their project 2025. Guys, that is it for me in today's video. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate your time. Don't forget to like, subscribe. I will see you in another video. Bye.